Today we're going to be reading out of the Bhagavad Gita again, continuing with the theme that we started a few weeks ago. And so this is from chapter 9, the Yoga of Royal Wisdom and Royal Mystery. And we'll be focusing on verses 27, probably through 34, but we'll see how far we get. The thing is that the mind is responsive to our soul nature. And so the clearer and more connected we are to our soul nature, the easier it is for the mind to process information correctly. Okay? And spiritual practice is ripening our mind, our mantra practice, our meditation practice, the yamas, the niyamas, everything that we do is ripening our mind so that we can eventually let go of the training wheels of our body and just experience pure consciousness as it is. That's what spiritual practice does for us. Okay. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, verse 27, it reads, "Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give, and whatever austerities you practice, do that as a holy offering to me." And Roy writes, "Whatever you intentionally do, eat, offer, or give, whatever self-disciplined practice you perform, do everything as a sacred act of offering to God. And whatever we consciously do should be considered essential to our relationship to the infinite. In this way, every moment is devoted to spiritual practice, to being in a harmonious relationship with the rhythms of life, and established in self-knowledge and God-awareness." So when we're in the world, we have to act. In the Bhagavad Gita earlier on, it talks about the yoga of renunciation. And which is better? Is it better to contemplate, or is it better to act within the world? And ideally what we want to do is we want to act within the world, but with each action we keep within the back of our minds that this is the action of the divine consciousness within this world. Because then whatever we do attunes us to this infinite presence. And then eventually it just becomes natural that that's what we know what we are. Okay, so that's the point here. And verse 28, "You will certainly be freed from the effects of constructive and destructive actions. Liberated with your mind disciplined by the yoga of renunciation, you will come to me." 29. "I am the same to all beings. There is none disliked by me or who is dear to me, but they who worship me with devotion are in me and I am in them." And Roy writes, "God has the same relationship to all souls because God's consciousness is expressing as every soul. Because God is the reality of every soul, God is incapable of disapproval or favoritism. But devotees who surrender in God with complete devotion experience themselves in God and God in and as them." So everything that we're experiencing is an expression of God, whether we know it or not. And the whole point of spiritual practice is to know it, right? So even the person who has no idea what they're doing, they're in complete unconscious mode, they're just acting out of conditioning, they are still God, and they are still expressing God. But they don't know it. Okay? The clearer we become, we start to realize that every action, every thought, every word, every deed is not us doing these things. It is this infinite consciousness. And that is when we know that we're free, and then we can be at peace, because we are this wholeness. We are this fullness of life. And this is good news, because in verse 30 it reads, "Even if one who is prone to error worships me with single-pointed devotion, that one is to be considered as righteous because rightly resolved. Even if a person whose behaviors are not perfect surrenders to God with complete devotion, that one should be considered as righteous because of being rightly resolved. Until we are flawlessly skillful in the performance of our duties and chosen actions, so long as we do our best, we are on the right course in life. Our behaviors will not be error-free until we are living knowledgeably and spontaneously as the result of being self-realized. We are only asked to live up to the highest potential of which we are presently capable." So we just do our best. We don't know everything. We make mistakes. We screw up. But as long as we know that we are doing our best, and we give up what we are doing to God again, Just having this sense that whatever happens, whatever flows through, even though you know you're not doing it perfectly, that's still attuning you to this infinite consciousness, and it's still helping you wake up. This doesn't make sense to the mind, because the mind wants to imagine that we should do everything perfectly all the time. And that is what the mind likes. Why? Because the mind likes to make problems. So, what is one real quick and easy way to make a problem? To imagine that you can do everything right all the time, and if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. All right, so this is also a way to humble yourself, because then you start to live from this space of, I don't know everything, but I'm doing my best. And I'm doing it in God, and that's all I can do, because that's all any of us can do, really. Okay. Now, 31. Quickly, that one becomes virtuous and experiences everlasting peace. Know for certain, no devotee of mine ever perishes. Who is that devotee that experiences everlasting peace? It is that one who is prone to error, that worships me with single-pointed devotion. That one is to be considered righteous and rightly resolved. And 32. They who take refuge in me, even if they are born in vile or low circumstances, regardless of who they are, also awaken to their highest good. I like what Roy writes in this one. Let's see. If we are intent upon spiritual growth and liberation of consciousness, our personal history is of no importance. Nothing we have experienced in the past need interfere with our aspiration and dedicated endeavors to awaken to self-knowledge and to live effectively. Soul unfoldment is not determined by gender, racial, or cultural circumstances, or our experiences prior to choosing to know God. What is essential to soul unfoldment is sincere resolve, constructive living, and effective spiritual practice. Where does the past begin? It begins right now, right? Right now, the past, that's it. So nothing we have experienced in the past, before this moment, need interfere with our aspiration and dedicated endeavors to awaken to self-knowledge and to live effectively. So take a moment in your meditation today to think about your life and your history and your past, and the things that you think you've screwed up and that you've done wrong, and just decide that's not going to interfere now. And then decide, make a commitment, choose from this point forward that whether you're prone to error or not, everything you do is in worship or in giving yourself to this divine infinite consciousness. Everything you do, every mistake you make, every good thing you do, everything. And so then from this point forward, you can quickly become virtuous and experience everlasting peace. And then you'll never be lost within this infinite consciousness. So now's the time, right? Well, the rapture was yesterday. So I guess we missed it. Those of you, do you all know about that? You know, the billboards that said that the world was supposed to end yesterday. Well, anyway, maybe it did. and now we're new. All right, so let's read a few more. So 33. How much easier, then, is this awakening for the pure in heart and the devoted saints? Having come into this realm, a place of sorrow for many, devote yourself to me. If a devotee of ordinary circumstances can awaken in God, how much easier it is for those devoted ones whose hearts are already pure and whose soul qualities are somewhat unfolded. While you are in this physical world, which for many is a realm of sadness, devote yourself to realizing God. And the last verse within this chapter. Concentrated on me, be devoted to me, making holy offerings to me, worship me. Thus steadfast with me as your supreme aim, you will come to me. And Roy writes, ever attentive to being aware of the presence of God. So there's the key. Ever attentive to being aware of the presence of God. Remain thus devoted. Engage in self-giving to God and surrender to God. Thus steadfast, with God realization as your highest aspiration, you will awaken in God. Inconsistent endeavor to facilitate spiritual growth is of minor value to its unfoldment. Devoted endeavor to live constructively and to nurture awareness of the presence of God results in rapid soul unfoldment. So again, you have to remember to get out of your mind a sense of perfection, that things are going to be perfect. They'll be good, they'll be better, but there will always be waves that come up. And so, if you are devoted to God in good times, then you need to be devoted in bad times as well. Although I'm not sure how people work. I usually think that people, when they go through something tumultuous or with turmoil, then they sort of, surface. What's that called? Like a submarine Catholic. And then they go to confession. Then they're devoted to God, and that's true. But also, you have to keep in mind that even when you're having a really good time and things are great, you need to also give that up too. So you give up the good and the bad across the board. And when you do that, then it becomes stable and you can see it no matter what's going on. Then you are always the witness, the observer. And the more you can practice this within your meditation and in life, you refine the nervous system, you refine the body until where it gets to such a point to where you can pretty much all the time be aware that you are a witnessing presence. And then from there, you even jump off from that point, and you start accepting that you are this infinite consciousness all the time, even when you're asleep, even when you're not aware. Because you see, the mind remembers things, right? There's memory within the mind. So when there are breaks in this witnessing presence, it doesn't mean that you really weren't present, it just means you don't remember it right now. Okay. So for example, do you remember exactly what you were doing at 10:18 yesterday morning? No. But you were probably awake and aware, right? For the most part. So again, you don't remember it because the mind wasn't so fully engaged in it, but that witnessing presence was there. So we have to learn to look beyond the mind and the memory as well, to this knowing, this inner knowing. Okay. So on that note, let's meditate together.